The call came just after Sunri's voice, cold and sharp, cut through the speaker. "You really thought you could take advantage of my daughter and walk away?" Andre's hands shook as he held the phone. "I'll destroy you and your pathetic little family." Andre Mello, censorship, worked night shifts as a nurse. He had no idea a simple act of kindness would turn into the worst nightmare of his life 3 weeks earlier. During a brutal storm, he saw a young woman, soaked and alone, standing under a broken bus shelter. She looked scared, lost. Without thinking, he took her home. His apartment was small, just 2 rooms. He lived there with his 7-year-old daughter, Luna. The girl said her name was Ava, student who'd lost her phone and wallet. Andre gave her food, dry clothes, a warm place to sleep just for one night. But one night became many. Ava helped with chores, played with Luna at the dinner table. Once, she cried softly and whispered, "Thank you. You made me feel like a person again." Andre never asked questions. He just listened. What he didn't know, Ava wasn't her real name. She was Sophia Wentz, of a powerful billionaireess to an empire worth over $200 million. And now, her father had found her. "Daddy, who were you yelling at?" Luna stood in the kitchen doorway, still in pajama size, half closed from sleep. Andre forced a smile as he hung up the call, but his heart was racing. Sophia's father had threatened everything, accused him of kidnapping, promised to ruin his career, take away Luna. But Richard Wensley didn't know one thing. Andre had kept records, detailed, careful notes, not out of fear but habit. As a nurse, he documented everything, every message Ava sent, every smile she shared with Luna, every tear of gratitude on the letter she left behind. A handwritten note thanking him 3 days later. The nightmare began. Indra was called into the hospital office. "There's been an anonymous complaint," his supervisor said, without meeting his eyes when he got home. Officers were already there, tearing through drawers, opening, clung to his leg. Shaking, he knelt down, gently brushed her hair back, and whispered, "Don't worry, sweetheart. We're going to be okay." Have you ever been in a situation like this? Share your thoughts in the comments and tell us where you're watching from. ***. Some people in power are about to learn they chose the wrong man to mess with. If you believe in justice, and you want to witness the moment when truth breaks through, make sure to follow this story, because what comes next will show that even the wealthiest can fall. All it takes is one recording. The attacks didn't stop, they only got worse. The very next day, Andre received a cold message from Luna's school. Her tuition had been frozen, flagged due to an ongoing legal issue. Then came his bank's insurance, Evan, the modest loan for his apartment. "Daddy, why did the lunch lady say I can't eat at school anymore?" Luna looked up at him on their walk home, eyes wide. Confused, Andre's chest tightened. He bent down, hugged her close. He never wanted her to feel for not because of his kindness. But that's what this was now. War against kindness. Wensley was using money like a weapon, cutting every part of Andre's life. Piece by piece. He didn't just want revenge. He wanted to crush a manto, destroy a little girl's world. The next call came at 2 a.m. "You see how easy it is to dismantle your pathetic little life." Wensley's voice dripped with venom. "Tomorrow, I cancel the rest of your contracts. In a week, you'll be homeless." And that's just the beginning. What he didn't know, Andre had already survived. Worse, he grew up in state-run orphanages, abandoned. At age 5, he knew exactly how it felt to lose everything, to be dismissed, looked down on, because of the color of his skin and the lack of a last name that mattered. "My father built an empire from nothing," Wensley hissed. "You're just a parasite, clinging to something that was never yours." He claimed Sophia was vulnerable, confused that Andre took advantage of her. But Andre stayed silent, letting the man unravel, letting every layer of arrogance and prejudice spill out. Every word was being recorded. Ever since the first threat, he had downloaded a discreet app on his phone. Years in hospitals had taught him that documentation could mean life or death. "People like you," Wensley snapped, "need to remember their place. You thought you could play house with my daughter. She's worth more than anything you'll ever have in your miserable life." Andre didn't respond. He didn't need to, because by morning someone unexpected showed up at his door. Dr. Sandra Torres knocked firmly on Andre's. Wasn't just any lawyer. She was a civil rights specialist he had met years ago during a discrimination case at the hospital. "I've heard whispers about your situation," she said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. Her voice calm, but her eyes were fire. "Richard Wensley isn't just rich, Andre," she continued. "He's known for using legal intimidation to silence anyone he thinks isn't worthy of his family." This wasn't new. 3 years ago, he financially destroyed a young teacher who had fallen in love with his niece. 2 years before that, he ruined an artist his oldest daughter had dated in Paris. "The pattern never changes," Sandra explained, spreading documents across Andre's coffee table. "Threats Financial sabotage. Legal pressure until the victim disappears from their world, and it always works. She added quietly, because his targets are regular people. People without power. Without protection. Andre looked at the files, then at Luna. Playing in the corner of the room, she sensed something was off. Even in her silence, his expression shifted not to Fernat, to something sharper, colder. Sandra recognized it immediately. He has no idea who he's dealing with, Andre said, a dangerous glint in his eyes. Men like Wensley live in bubbles so thick with privilege. They forget there are other kinds of power, power that doesn't wear a suit. While Richard Wensley celebrated what he believed was another easy win, another crushed life beneath his empire. Andre opened a folder on his laptop. Inside were 2 years of quiet truth. Every note, every photo, every tear Sophia had shed, every real smile shared with Lune's story. The billionaire had no idea existed, because it didn't fit the narrative in his prejudice-soaked mind. And with every new threat, Andra felt something rising in him, something his enemies couldn't see, a force shaped by pain, by injustice, ready to shake the golden foundation of the empire that tried to erase him. For the next 3 days, while Luna slept, Ander and Sandra turned his apartment into a war room. They scanned voice messages, reviewed screenshots, tracked every trace Wensley had left behind, until finally Sandra leaned over the laptop, eyes wide, voice trembling. Look at this. She whispered, we've got him. Asterisk, asterisk. They found it. The same exact tactics used by Richard Wensley in at least 5 other cases over the last 5 years. Over the last 5 years. Financial isolation, legal pressure, systematic harassment. But this time, they uncovered something deeper. Richard wasn't just a protective father. He was a social predator, using money as a weapon, silencing anyone he saw as unworthy of his family name. Every past victim had disappeared behind $1 million settlements, locked in silence by Undiaz. But this time, he made a mistake. He thought I'd be easy to break, Andre said quietly. Replaying one of the threatening calls, he assumed I'd fold the moment things got hard. But Andre didn't fold even as the attacks escalated. Next morning, his professional license was suspended, no explanation, just pending ethical review. His bank account was frozen. His landlord got an anonymous call, warning him about a problem tenant. Daddy, why were those men taking pictures of our house? Luna clung to his leg, her voice trembling. Gandra had already seen the private investigators, watching, photographing, recording every visitor, every move. But Richard Wensley had no idea who he was dealing with. Andre wasn't just a devoted nurse. He had grown up inside broken systems, shelters, state care, social services. He learned young to document everything meticulously, silently. That skill, it became his weapon. He's trying to ruin me before any court ever sees a shred of evidence, Andre told Sandra during one of their late-night meetings. But every step he takes is recorded, every threat is logged. He's building our case for us. Sandra looked at him, a quiet admiration behind her tired smile. You know, we don't just have enough for criminal charges. We could hit him with a civil lawsuit that might cost him millions. Then came the call. The one Andre wasn't expecting. It was Sophia, her voice shaky, laced with tears. Andre, I need to talk to you. My father's saying horrible things about you and Luna. He's planning something bad. She paused, struggling to speak. I heard him on the phone. He's paying people to plant fake evidence at your place. He's going to accuse you of kidnapping, and worse. Andre froze, his blood ran cold, but his voice stayed calm. Sophia, are you safe? Where are you right now? I'm hiding in his office. I don't have much time. Andre, you need to leave. Take Luna and run. Asterisk, asterisk. Andre looked at Sandra. She had heard the entire conversation through the speaker. She nodded. Slowly, she was recording to Sophia. Listen to me carefully, Andre said. Don't do anything that could put you at risk, but if you can, if there's any way you can record those conversations, I already have. She whispered, for weeks now, I've got recordings, emails, messages. Andre, my father isn't just cruel, he's dangerous. He's destroyed so many lives. Then the call cut off abruptly, but that single moment changed everything. Andre and Sandra weren't fighting alone anymore. They had the inside, someone with access to his secrets, to his strategy, to the proof. That night, Andre tucked Luna into bed with a calmness she hadn't seen in days. She looked up at him. Daddy, you don't look so worried anymore. He kissed her forehead, smiling softly. Sometimes, sweetheart, when people try to hurt the good ones, they end up destroying themselves instead, and Daddy's just waiting for that to happen. In the kitchen, Sandra was organizing files, her focus sharp, precise. You realize what we have here, she said, gesturing to the evidence on the table. This isn't just harassment, this is criminal conspiracy. Extortion, abuse of power. Andre nodded, but something deeper flickered in his eyes. Sandra, I spent my whole life being underestimated by teachers, by bosses, by a system that only saw a young black man with no future. I learned that the best defense isn't anger, it's patience, letting people reveal who they really are. And Richard, he's revealing more than he'll ever realize. Sandra smiled. Slow and sure as they were finishing up for the night, Andra's phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. It was Sophia. Tomorrow at 10 a.m. He's sending someone to plant drugs at your place. I have the recording, don't be there. Andre showed the message to Sandra. She immediately picked up the phone, making calls, her voice firm. Steady, we're going to turn his trap into our greatest win, she said, her eyes glowing with purpose. For a moment, when Andre looked out the window and saw the investigators still circling his block, it almost looked like another rich man's easy victory, another crushed family. But those watching closely noticed something different. The calm in Andre's face wasn't surrender, it was something far more dangerous. The quiet confidence of a man about to turn his oppressor's arrogance into the very weapon that would destroy him. Asterisk. At exactly 9:57, Amanda sat quietly inside a parked van 3 blocks away from his apartment, locked on a laptop, streaming live security footage from every room in his home. Sandra had worked through the night installing a professional surveillance system, hidden in corners, directional mics set with precision, every movement, every word captured in crystal clear quality with timestamps and GPS. They're here, Sandra whispered. She pointed to a screen showing 2 men dressed as maintenance workers approaching the back door. One of them carried a toolbox, but it looked too heavy for a simple plumbing repair. Andre slid on his headphones, listened closely. You sure the big guy isn't home? The first man asked, picking the lock with a master key. Wensley confirmed he's at work until noon. The second replied, pulling out 3 small plastic bags from the toolbox. We'll spread it all over kid's room, kitchen, under the mattress, the more obvious the better. Andre clenched his fists, but kept breathing. Steady. Luna was safe. She was with Rafar. From this nightmare at 10:05, right on schedule. Richard Wensley made his move. He called the local precinct, his voice slightly distorted. I have information about suspected drug activity at an address on Maple Street. He said there's a child involved. I think she's in immediate danger. What Richard didn't know, Sandra had already planned for this. She had quietly alerted internal affairs, tipped him off about a possible evidence planting scheme involving a high-profile billionaire. So when officers arrived at Andre's apartment, they didn't just find drugs scattered in the rooms. They found 2 men still inside, caught in the act. A camera still live streaming every detail directly to civil rights attorneys, and audio recordings crystal clear of Richard Wensley giving the exact orders. Mr. Wensley, said Detective Morrison, his voice flat professional. It was enough to make the billionaire pause. He knew something had gone wrong. We need to talk, Morrison continued. Richard tried the usual tactic. Detective, I think there's been a misunderstanding. I'm Richard Wensley, of Wensley Holdings. Perhaps we can arrange a meeting through my legal team, Mr. Wensley. Morrison cut him off. You're now under official investigation for conspiracy, for planting false evidence, for attempting to frame an innocent man, and a few other charges. Your lawyers can go over with you in detail my advice. Turn yourself in. Asterisk. Meanwhile, across the city, Andra watched in silences. The empire Richard Wensley had used to crush innocent families finally crumbled in real time. Sandra had orchestrated a multi-front strategy. This wasn't just defense anymore, it was justice. The recordings have already been sent to the district attorney, she said, tapping through a checklist on her tablet. The financial documents Sophia gave us, they connect him to 3 other identical cases in the last 5 years. And the best part, Sandra smiled, opening a new browser tab, the media knows everything. Channel 7, the Tribune, even the Washington Herald. This story goes live at 6 p.m. Andre looked at the screen. Federal agents leading Richard Wensley out of his building. The man who had tormented his family for weeks now walked with his head down, cameras flashing, journalists swarming, his arrogance replaced by visible panic. Then Andre's phone rang. It was Sophia, her voice trembling, but filled with relief. Andre, I did it. I've got recordings of at least 10 calls, emails, wire transfers, everything he used to target innocent people. Sophia, are you safe? He asked, worried for the girl who had risked everything to expose her own father. I'm moving in with my aunt in Seattle, she said, but before I go, I just wanted you to know those 2 weeks with you and Luna, they were the first time I ever felt like I belonged to a real family. She's lucky to have a father like you. That Evan Ingendard was home cooking dinner with Luna. The news played softly in the background. Breaking tonight, said the anchor. Billionaire Richard Wensley has been indicted on multiple federal charges. accused of conspiracy and the systemic targeting of vulnerable families. Exclusive documents reveal a pattern of abuse. Stretching over a decade, Luna looked at her dad, her eyes wide with realization. Daddy, that's the man who was mean to us, right? Andre turned off the TV, kneeling down to meet her gaze. Yes, sweetheart, but now, he can't hurt our family or anyone else's but. How did you know everything would be okay? She asked with the innocent wonder of a year-old. Endra smiled, thinking of all the nights he spent awake documenting threats, recording lies, building piece by piece the case that finally took down a corrupt empire. Sometimes, my love, when truly cruel people try to hurt the good ones, they end up destroying themselves instead. Daddy just helped it all happen a little faster that night. After Luna had fallen, Slipender got a call from Dr. Martinez. Andre, do you even realize what you've done? Wensley didn't just lose his company, the board voted unanimously to remove him, his accounts are frozen, and 3 other families he targeted are now suing him for millions in civil court. Andre looked out the window of his small apartment, the place where it all began, with a scared young girl knocking at his door. During a storm 3 months later, the man who had tried to destroy him out of pure prejudice was watching everything he'd built collapse. But the real victory wasn't in Richard's downfall, it was that Andre had protected his daughter, held on to his dignity, and proved that justice doesn't care about skin color or class or bank accounts. Justice demands courage, wisdom, the refusal to believe that injustice is inevitable. Richard Wensley spent his first night in a prison cell, wondering how he had underestimated a quiet black nurse from the outskirts of the city. Andre kissed Luna goodnight and started thinking about the next chapter of their life, because when the storm passes, it's time to rebuild stronger than before. 6 months after the fall of Wensley's empire, Sousa sat in his new office. No longer a cramped apartment, but a bright, spacious space filled with light and hope. His desk was covered in job offers, contracts, invitations to speak at universities across the country. Daddy, look, you're in the newspaper again. Luna rushed in, waving the latest edition of the Tribune, and the front page A headline read, "The nurse who took down a corrupt billionaire launches Institute for Civil Rights." Luna had flourished over the last few months, her confidence and joy returning one smile at a time. Andre smiled, taking the paper in his hands. Looking at the photo on the cover, showed the front of the Andre Sousa Institute for Social Justice, an organization he founded using part of the $1 million settlement from Wensley and donations from supporters around the world. What began as a personal fight had become a national movement to stand against corporate abuse of power. Dr. Martinez is here, Luna said, pointing down the hall. Sandra walked in, a stack of documents in her arms. The lawyer who had once defended him was now his partner, and, after the Wensley case, he had become one of the most respected civil rights defenders in the country. Since Andre, we've got news. Sandra sat down at the table, her voice calm. Her smile restrained. Richard Wensley was officially declared bankrupt yesterday. The last of his assets were auctioned off to pay damages to the families he targeted. Andre gave a silent nod. Over the past few months, he had quietly followed the slow, complete unraveling of the man who once tried to crush him. First came the criminal charges, 3 years in prison, then the civil lawsuits, bleeding every dollar from his accounts, and finally, the social collapse. Old friends gone, business partners gone, and his family walked away. Once the truth was exposed, he tried contacting me again. Sandra added, that's the 3rd letter this month. Still trying to negotiate some kind of deal, offering names of other powerful people tied to similar schemes. Andre looked out the window of his office below. Luna played in the park during her break from school. People like Wensley never understand what they actually did wrong, he murmured. They only regret getting caught. Just then, his phone rang, an international number. Oxford University offering him a visiting chair to teach social justice, a recognition of his groundbreaking work in exposing systemic abuse of power. Andra had become, almost by accident, one of the world's foremost voices in fighting institutional corruption. Daddy, are you going to London? Luna had overheard part of the call. Only for a few months, he said, brushing her hair gently, to teach others how to stand up when powerful people try to hurt them. Meanwhile, across the city, Richard Wensley sat in a tiny prison cell surrounded by newspaper clippings about his fall from grace. Each headline a sharp reminder of the man he once tried to destroy. His lawyers dropped his case when he could no longer pay their fees. His wife had divorced him, moved to another state, changed her name. His children no longer answered his calls. The cruelest irony. The man who spent decades using his fortune to silence those he deemed lesser now relied on the charity of the prison system to meet his most basic needs. The man who once owned 3 mansions now shared a 2-meter cell with a roommate who treated him with the same contempt. once showed toward vulnerable families that Friday afternoon as the sun slipped behind the skylinder, received an unexpected visitor. Asterisk. Asterisk. Sophia Wensley, now going by her mother's last name. Morrison knocked gently at the door of the institute. She looked different, not just in style, but in presence and confidence. Gone was the fragile girl from a Manchi Inn. Her place stood a young woman who had learned to fight for something bigger than herself. I wanted to thank you in person, she said, taking a seat in the reception hall of the Andrei Souza Institute. Not just for protecting me, but for showing me there are people in this world willing to do what's right, even when it costs them everything. Sophia shared that she had used the last of her inheritance assets she managed to protect before her father's downfall, create a legal support fund for families targeted by corporate abuse. She was now studying land, planned to dedicate her career to cases like Andrei's. My father always told me that people like you were different, she said, her voice trembling, tears in her eyes. Less than it took me 22 years to realize. The only person who was less was him, and me forever believing those lies just then. Luna burst into the room, fresh from school, her face lit up the moment she saw Sophia. Emma, she shouted, running into her arms to Luna. She would always be the kind girl who shared pancake mornings and Lego afternoons. Andrei watched them reunited. Quiet mix of warmth and gratitude in his chest. One choice, a single act of kindness. A stranger in from the cold had set off a ripple wave of change that went far beyond his living room that night. After Sophia left hand, Luna had fallen. A Slappender stayed in his office reviewing the latest reports from the institute. In just 6 months they had helped 43 families fighting back against systemic abuse, covering over $8 million in damage, leading to the arrest of 12 corrupt executives. Then his phone rang again, Sinanri, requesting an interview for a national documentary on the Wensley case. Andrei politely declined, as he always did, because his victory was never about headlines or fame. It was about protecting his daughter and proving one thing, that justice knows no class, no status, no wealth, that it only demands courage, persistence, and heart. Later that night, as Andrei closed his eyes, his thoughts didn't go to Wensley rotting in a prison cell or to the millions flowing through his institute or the prestigious offers arriving each week from universities around the world. No, he thought of a cold, stormy night and a frightened young girl on his door, and the simple choice to open it. That simple choice to show kindness to a stranger had become the foundation for everything that followed. Andrei had learned something powerful, true. Revenge isn't about tearing down those who try to hurt you, it's about building something so meaningful, so strong that their cruelty becomes irrelevant. Richard Wensley tried to destroy a modest family and ended up creating a movement that would protect thousands more in the future. Luna slept peacefully in her room. Her father was a man respected by the world. She would grow up understanding that real strength doesn't come from wealth or powerful enemies. It comes from doing what's right, even when it costs everything, especially when no one believes you have the power to fight. Andrei had discovered the best kind of revenge was to build a life so full of purpose that those who try to destroy you become nothing more than a forgotten footnote. The story of your triumph, and as Richard Wensley faded into failure and obscurity under new every single family his institute helped, was living proof of one thing, that kindness, when paired with courage and clarity, will always triumph over corrupt privilege. If this story of justice and resilience moved you, didn't forget to subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, because in the real world, stories like Andrei's happen every day, and they prove something simple. Anyone can stand against injustice. Anyone can win, as long as they have the courage to document the truth and the wisdom to turn pain into protection for others.